Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Creating Belonging podcast. Today, I have with me Justin Nelson. He is one of the founders of the NGLCC, but I'll let Justin describe that and talk about himself a little bit, if you wouldn't mind giving us an intro.
Well, thanks, Justin, as well. It's always nice to be with a fellow Justin. Probably get Jason a lot as well. So
Yes.
nice.
And Jeff. Do you get Jeff?
I get Jeff, and I have a brother, Jeff. So it's even more. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and everything you're doing to help put this topic out there and share it as broadly and widely as possible. So I am co-founder and president here at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, confusingly known as NGLCC, because for many years we were the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, had a lot of brand equity in that acronym. So we did rebrand as the National LGBT Chamber, but we did keep our NGLCC acronym, which happens a lot in Washington, I think, as organizations evolve to meet the needs of the time. We are an organization that consists of now 54 affiliate chambers across the U.S., state and local chambers. We now have 29 globally, representing 40 countries on 5 continents. So it truly is a global network of LGBTQ and allied business owners, professionals, and corporate partners. We work with around 450 major corporations, most of them multinational. And our backbone program is to help LGBTQ-owned businesses become certified and get into the diverse supply chain to be able to bid on contracts as a diverse supplier with those 450 corporate partners. And it's not just little contracts. We do literally billions of dollars a year in business. So for companies that are at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled by an LGBT person or persons, certification's the way to go. And they get there through joining their local affiliate chamber, and can find that on our website at nglcc.org.
That's so great. I love the organization that you've built. How long has NGLCC been around?
We will be 22 years old in November. So yeah, we're out of our adolescence.
Yeah, it's so incredible. You've got to be proud of the organization that you've built. So my business, Performance Accelerated Learning, we became certified in December of 22, I believe. So we're just over a year of being a certified business. And I want to, with this episode, I'm going to go a little off track than where we normally go, just because I want to highlight some of the work of the NGLCC and the experiences you create. And so I'm going to tell a bit of a story, and then that I want to tee up to hear a little bit about your reaction and your thoughts on how you built this. We were together in August in Denver, right? And it was a conference unlike any that I've ever attended. It was almost, and I say this in the most kind way, almost uncomfortably inclusive, to the point where people would just come up to you anywhere in the hotel and say, "Hey, my name's so and so, and here's what I do. What's your business? Tell me about where you're from." I made connections and friends there. I actually made friends with someone who literally lives 3 blocks from me here in Chicago. So we had never met before, met in Denver, and now we've had drinks and are talking about some projects that we're going to work on together. So it was just such an incredible experience. And first, and I think this is a part of my, as a gay man, there's a bit of guardedness normally in those settings. And I don't know, and or in life in general. And so to be in this place where everyone's guard was down and just really genuinely connecting with others and making these amazing relationships, it was so great. So first off, to cut it short, like, you've nailed creating belonging within this like big community of the NGLCC. But I'd love to hear from your perspective. I don't know, any of your thoughts on my experience or things you've heard from others. Just would love to hear about what you built.
Well, I love that Denver was your sort of dive in the pool moment. It was probably my favorite, and I have the luxury of having been to all conferences we've ever done, and they just keep getting better. And I think it's just part of the people. And I think there's an organic nature to it but there is also what I would call curated authenticity. It's about creating a scenario where what you hope happens actually has the ability to happen. And it goes back 22 years now. We'll be 22 in November, when my co-founder, Chance Mitchell, and I were just sort of even kicking around the idea of launching this organization. And there was just something really important to us. We wanted to have an organization that we wanted to belong to. We wanted to build something that we would want to join. We wanted to have events that we would want to go to, and that we's multiplied into other we's and team members and partners and so forth. And it has really been this building on top of, it's almost like a Lego set here, that we keep building this magnificent model of what we can do when we work together. And to you said, when we let our guard down, I think we're all that way. And I think we can be our own worst critics. We're a circular firing squad. There's a lot of cattiness and just, if you don't know someone and that sort of thing. And what we did was we said, we're going to build a big sandbox. And those people that want to play in the sandbox are welcome to. And those that don't want to, the hell with you, because we're going to enjoy ourselves. And we're going to build a space where people feel welcome. They feel as though they belong. They have an advocate in our organization that genuinely cares about the success of their company and about making genuine connections. And we're going to use that as sort of the base level that we're building this amazing organization on.
So I'd love to hear, as you've been building, there has to be a lot of intentionality that goes into setting the tone years ago, 22 years ago, to get to the point where you're at today, that this community thrives in the way that it does. And something that I am writing about in the second edition of my book is creating belonging for organizations, and kind of how do you set out with intentionality to create belonging for large groups of people. I'm curious what those things were that you did.
It's a great question. I think a lot of it's getting in the laboratory and seeing what works. And I think more importantly, what doesn't work. We are not the same organization. But there are two things that are the same about this organization today as the day we were founded, and that's chance. Everything else has continually evolved. For me, I believe that the phrase, well, that's the way we've always done it, is the death march of any organization, of any company. I don't care how great something has been. There's always ways of improving it, bringing new ideas to the table. And that's what we've done, is constantly evolve. I remember actually seeing this sign in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, and I snapped a picture of it, and I think about it often. It says, icons reinvent, others implode. So the premise being that you've got to be, if you want to stay on top, if you want to stay relevant, you've got to constantly be not reinventing and losing your identity, but keeping up with the times, making sure you're being responsive to what you hear. And that's both internally and externally. And so we have a wonderful group of team members. We don't have employees. We have Team NGLC. We really try to make sure that people feel like they're a part of something larger, really work hard, especially in this virtual environment. We went totally virtual post-COVID. I think we're one of the organizations that made the jump. Many haven't been able to, I think, to the degree of success that we have, and being very intentional about who you bring onto a team. We're a team of about 25. So while it's the large side of small, it's still small. And if people don't fit the culture, I don't mean they have to agree on everything. We don't want everyone just being yes people. We want new, fresh ideas, people being hungry to make their mark and help our stakeholders forge forward. But there's a culture, and people have to be really omnipresent, I think, in ensuring that the culture, that people they bring into their culture are people that help that flourish and change it in ways that are positive. So making sure that you're not bringing in subversive personalities or constant complainers or people that all they want to do is think about the downside of things versus the true, real opportunity that we have here. I often say, I will do anything for my team. My responsibility is to the organization and our stakeholders, and that includes our team. But I would fire my mother if she weren't doing her job. And we have to be willing to make hard decisions when they need to be made, and to bring others along with the vision of what we have and what we're trying to accomplish. My way or the highway is not a winning recipe. That doesn't mean sometimes you got to, forge forward like a steamroller, but you really do need to be able to bring people along and also share leadership and responsibility. And I think that's what's happened in our organization that's allowed us to flourish. And then just one last thing. It's a little bit of our secret recipe, but I'll share just a bit of it here. The other phrase I hate is don't sweat the small stuff. You always have to sweat the small stuff. When people get in a room like you experienced in Denver, there was very little that was left to chance in the experience that we wanted people to have. It really comes from putting things in place that allow people to naturally go to the places that you hope that they get to. And it's little things, little touches that you probably wouldn't know if you just looked, but we think about them. And there are things that we want to make sure that we sweat the small stuff, that we consider the things because it differentiates us from our colleagues, from our friends and friendly competitors, that sort of thing. You can put the same people in the same room at a different event and it will feel differently. A large portion of our attendees attend several of these a year. And I'm with you. There is such a difference at our event than I feel or that people feel sometimes at others. Not that they're not wonderful, they are, but there's just something different. One person said to me at conference this year, I have never been so exhausted and my cup has never been more full as I'm leaving here. And I think that's really how I feel. I remember early years, I used to literally ball up in the fetal position at the end of conference because I was exhausted from it, and both physically and emotionally and so forth. I really get a recharge from it now. It's just something so wonderful to see the people connecting and like you said, you met someone that lives 3 blocks away. So I think those are things that we focus on and that constant reinvention. Don't get stuck in the rut. Don't let the wheels just spin in motion and go nowhere.
Speaking of details, something that stands out to me is, so first off, I'm going to stereotype, but when I stereotype around my own identity, I'm okay with it. But like, seriously, give a bunch of gay men a theme party. I think it was the Wednesday night event was a disco theme party and everyone in costumes. And I mean, full on costume, not just something simple.
Yeah.
So you have the details down, and that was unlike any traditional hour-long cocktail party that I've ever attended.
Well, we've been wanting to do an 80s party forever, Chance and I have. That was sort of the heyday. We were growing up. That's a lot of memories, a lot of good memories, and some not so great memories. Maybe we'll talk about them a little bit later, but we wanted to do this. We were like, you know what? Let's do it. Denver's the right place. And I thought naively, and I'm glad I was surprised. I thought maybe 30% of the people would show up in costume. And when I looked around that room at the end of the night, 80%, no, probably 90% of the people had some 80s garb on. And we historically have kept that party open about between 15, 30 minutes later than we usually do. And then we kept it open an hour and later than it was going to go, just because people were having fun and dancing and playing the 80s music. And it was such a remarkable experience. In fact, I think for me personally, but as I looked down and saw this joy on everyone's face, it really was like, yeah, you know what? We have something to be proud of. This is something that people belong to.
Yeah. And what was that event? I didn't stay until the close of the event, but it was that event that determined that in the future, I will always stay at the host hotel, because in Denver, to save money, I stayed with some friends who live in Denver. And so I wasn't going to get crazy that night and needed to drive back out. And so then I was like, okay, well, I have to stay at the host hotel from now on because there's just too much going on.
Well, that'll be the Renaissance. There's actually 4 host hotels this year, but the main is we're in Palm Springs. So there's that one hotel that fits us all, but the main one's attached to the convention center. So when registration goes live, I would book there as quickly as you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'll make sure to put a registration link in the show notes so that people can check that out. Back to intentionality and creating belonging. Another thing I wanna touch on, because and I'm making assumptions here, and I think based on the evolution of kind of the history that I've seen, these are safe-ish assumptions. I would imagine that in the early days, there was very much a focus of kind of gay men, gay women, But what I experienced in Denver, there were more trans business folk than I've seen ever in one place, which was just incredible. And I know that some organizations trip over themselves to really expand scope to the full spectrum of LGBTQ plus and whatever letters we want to throw in there. So I'm curious what you've done over the years to ensure that lens stays wide.
I think two things. One is never thinking you've done enough because you haven't.
Mhm.
And so always looking at ways that you continue to expand that tent, that welcome mat. And we were very intentional several years ago now about creating programs that targeted TGX, transgender and gender expansive communities and communities of color to let them know that this was a place where they belong.
Mhm.
We looked at actually the impetus were two things. One, I was having a conversation at one of our events, and we were very proud about the trans inclusion that was happening. It was minuscule, a fraction of what you saw in Denver. And a trans woman named, you probably met her at conference, Ashley, came up to me and said, "You need to do more trans work." I said, "We absolutely do. What are you going to do to help?" And so we created our Trans TGX initiative with the whole purpose of identifying and letting trans business owners know that this was an organization that cared about them, their well-being. We went right after a scholarship program that we do with Wells Fargo, which helps trans businesses get membership in their local affiliate chamber and thereby get certified. And then we had an experience where we had a Black gay business owner who belongs both to NGLCC, certified through us, also certified through the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And he came to me and Lewis Green, who was the acting head of NMSDC at the time. And he said, "I don't always feel comfortable as a Black man at NGLCC. And I don't always feel comfortable as a gay man at NMSDC. And I said, that's exactly what we don't want you feeling. So let's be intentional about this." And so we created our Communities of Color initiative. We launched it in Tampa. I guess that would have been 2018, 2019. I don't remember exactly. And I remember we had invited every person of color that had registered, because we do collect demographic information, and had identified and invited them to our town hall. And I will tell you that this is just by being intentional. I took questions and listened to the community for what was supposed to be an hour. We ended up being there, I think, 2.5 hours. I think people walked in there, they were ready to kick some ass. And we walked out of there ready to kick some ass together, which was really great. And those people have become our champions in the marketplace in saying, "Hey, yeah, this is an organization you can belong to. This is somewhere where you can be yourself, you can feel welcomed, you can feel heard." And you mentioned something in the preface to this about understanding, yes, we're gay, but we're white. We do have white privilege. We have male privilege. And utilizing that privilege where I'm able to be in a room where, for whatever reason, others aren't yet. So I see it as my duty to kick that door down or to walk through it as I can and sit at the table and make sure that I'm constantly advocating for that table to be larger. And I think about it as allies, what allies have done for us. So I think even within our own LGBTQ space, we have to be allies to the communities of color, allies to trans and gender expansive, allies to those LGBTQ people with disabilities, so on and so forth, and externally with those larger communities. And that's what happens. We just said we're going to be intentional about this. We've created various educational programs that specifically target our Coaching and TGX communities. We have a cohort of our Accelerate Executive Leadership and Scaling education program that is only Coaching and TGX related. And we have, I think, nearly quadrupled the number of trans businesses. And I'm proud to say that over a quarter of our certified supply base are businesses that are owned by people of color. So is it enough? No. Is it better than it was? Absolutely. And are we going to continue to keep working on it? Yes, we are. And as we bring more people in, they become more ambassadors for us in the marketplace. And it really does become that multiplying effect.
That's so amazing. And those are great examples of how you've committed to evolution and reinvention. I love the idea of just not settling where you're at. And the way that you spoke about enrolling others, where Ashley said to you, "Hey, you're not doing enough for trans individuals." And you said, "You're right. And what are you going to do to help us?" I think it's amazing. That also speaks to like, I want to help, but we need more than just me. So like, come join us is incredible. So I love the work that you've done. It's incredible. And I don't want this to be just a commercial for the NGLCC. So I want to talk about Justin Nelson. I had to say that your last name so we know that we're not talking about myself in the third person.
Sure, we can talk about you if you'd prefer.
Let's talk about Justin Nelson. I'd love to hear, I want to dig into you kind of beyond NGLCC. And I know you've dug a bit into the work of creating belonging, the model that I've got in the book. And I'd love to hear just some of your experiences, like what in your life resonated back to you in the model.
Well, I'm going to start with minimizing. I remember distinctly as an 8-year-old kid, or excuse me, eighth grade kid in Casper, Wyoming, where I grew up, walking down the street and having a carload of what I assume was high schoolers drive by and yell out the window, "Hey, are you a woman?" And I yelled back, "No." And they yelled back, "Well, you sure would walk like one." And at that moment, I realized, well, gosh, I got to butch it up. I need to minimize who I am. I don't even fully understand who I am. And I think about that story. I don't tell that story a lot. Uh, but here I am 50 years old and I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I don't remember it fondly. I almost wonder where I would be on the spectrum if I'd have just said like you and went on about it's doing, but I didn't. And so I don't know if it's any different of the person I am today or not, but I do think that it made me sort of reinforce the masculine aspects of who I was or who I was supposed to be at the time. And that's something that's a part of me. And I think those experiences make us who we are today. And I always hate when people say, well, it makes you stronger and blah, blah, blah. No, it actually makes you miserable sometimes when you think about it. But it
Mhm.
also makes you think, you know what, they didn't pull over and beat the snot out of me. So I'm thankful for that. But it certainly, I think it almost led to some of the reclusive behavior as well. I was not, I mean, it's different. I mean, there was a guy, there was a football player, wrestler, track, very popular guy who was out and about in high school and dated around and was a part of everything. And but I always knew in the back of my mind who I was. And it wasn't until I got the opportunity to move to Washington for an internship and got my first taste of gay life away from home and away from closed minds that I realized what the world was and could be and where I
Yeah.
belong.
Those moments, and it's interesting that you say it's something that you don't share a lot. I think we all have those like really small moments that actually created big meaning for us in our lives because that thing, while you don't talk about that moment often, it probably pops in your mind or is there kind of nagging at you, like, "How are you walking today?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I remember there were other kids that I assume were gay in high school. And I ran with the in crowd and I made it my purpose, I guess, at times to keep them from picking on the other kids. Well, in my own mind, I was scared to death that someone would find out about me or think that about me. But I think there was at least some of that.
Yeah, and in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up, like, it wa that was we it was there wasn't Will& and Grace on television. that we could look to as what success, I mean, and I'm not gonna call that, like, what success looks like as gay people, but it's at
Well,
least
that was fine. The first time we saw ourselves in prime time thinking, "Oh my gosh, we're people now." Like, the caricatures and things get a bit annoying, but I really think at the time it was groundbreaking and so much needed. To your point, I remember as a kid, the gay people that I had seen were in the police academy movies going to the Blue Oyster Bar. They were not portrayed in positive light. When I remember Barney Frank, when he first came out, and Dick Armey, I'm a political junkie, so forgive me for regressing, and going on the House floor as the House leader and calling him Barney Frank. It's just remarkable how sometimes bullies don't grow up and they become the bully when they get in positions of power. Although I think a lot of people, as we've seen, are have and continue to push back on that. But those are things we remember. On the belonging side of things, I came out. I was working on the Hill for Wyoming senator. He was wonderful. He's since passed. But I remember going around then. It was a Christmas party in 1996, I think it would have been. And I had a little too much to drink and told my roommate at the time that I was gay. And he was wonderful. And I'd been seeing someone. And so he and his girlfriend invited us to do something. It was the first time ever I'd been able to do something sort of publicly with another guy. And then I decided I was going to tell everyone I wanted to hear it from my mouth. And then I was going to tell my friend Jennifer because I knew she'd tell everybody else. I love her to death to this day, but she's very good at getting messaging out. Let's put it that way. And so I did. And then I moved in with my then boyfriend shortly thereafter. We broke up. I didn't know a soul, a gay soul, other than another guy on staff, the senator's office. So I moved into DC. I was living in Virginia and got a job one night a week at a gay bar. And then was about to move. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was going to go back west. I moved all my stuff back. I was doing healthcare lobbying at the time. I'd left the Hill. And then that one night a week at the bar, and I met this amazing group of people that became friends, Chance being one of them. To this day, we were all gathered in Fort Lauderdale for my 50th. We get together for major events. It's the same group of people that I have, not that we don't have other friends or haven't made them, but the same group of people that have been my friends since Labor Day, 1998. And that is a group you really belong to because they know me before there was an NGLCC. They don't care about anything that comes along with it. There's a genuine wonderful feeling for having that kind of belonging where they don't care. They know you. They know your background. They know the stories that would keep you out of public office today if they were told, that sort of stuff. So that is really important. And I think in some ways we tried to bring that into what we do at NGLC. I mean, the guys and we had a house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware every summer. And there were these theme parties that some of the houses would do. Well, of course, we dove right in the deep end on it. And it became this great rivalry over the summers between this other house and our house as to who was going to have the best backyard theme party. And so we've been able to carry some of that experience and the joy that we saw from people that attended into what we try to curate for NGLCC. And that I think makes it even more special and more close to the work that we do. And it's always like our friends are with us as we're doing it.
Yeah, so it was the backyard parties that inspired the theme parties at
Oh,
NGLC.
hands down. You may see a few recycled for 2024 and beyond over the next few years.
Well, it'll be my first time experiencing it, so I'll be fine with it. And one thing I want to go back and kind of capture there is there's an interesting in that storyline that you've shared. The pivot was really when you were able to be yourself, when you felt comfortable being vulnerable, leaning into your authenticity, that you found that group of people where you had that true belonging and where it exists today.
Oh, absolutely.
So it speaks to that the authenticity side of the model that we talk about a lot.
It's funny how when you, and to be fully transparent, I think I used to be an off the charts extrovert. If there was something going on, I had to be a part of it. I am much, maybe part of it's stage, but part of it's work too. I give a lot to what we do, and it takes a lot out of a person. And so I think the last time I did the Myers-Briggs, if you put any trust in that, I was just a slight introvert now. Now I put my extrovert on when I get out and we're doing an event or something like that, but it's interesting. And so I think just naturally you close yourself off a little bit in a position like mine. But I find every time I'm willing to open up a little bit or be a little bit vulnerable with people or with an experience, I have yet to be disappointed by what the return to me is. So I think it's about remembering that. We don't always remember it, but taking time to think about the good things that come when you are authentic and when you open yourself up to that experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as we mature, I just think we balance out. Because I'm with you. I needed to be at every party. I needed to be at everything that was going on. And now I still like to be out and involved, but I'm also cool just like chilling on the couch for a bit.
Well, my partner's forced me to have a social life again. So that's good. I met him a little over a year ago. And so he is a very social person. So we kind of balance each other out a little bit, which
Yeah,
is nice.
that happens. That happens naturally. I love that. Well, Justin, thank you so much for spending some time with me today and on the Creating Belonging podcast. I just want to make sure if people want to get in touch with you and or the NGLCC, what are the best ways to do that?
NGLCC is www.nglcc.org. You can learn about our affiliates, about certification, about conference, everything there. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do that at justin.nelson@nglcc.org.
Great. Well, Justin, thank you so much again. And everyone else, join us again for another episode of the Creating Belonging podcast. Thanks.